Hey everybody. Yeah, I'm here with my Wrestlemania Night 1, Wrestlemania 38, I should say, Night 1 review. For anybody that's curious, as I make sure everything is straightened here on the camera. Okay, it is. But just for anybody that's curious, no, I did not order it on pay-per-view. I watched it on Peacock, which I'm sure a lot of you have. I mean, if some of you did watch it on pay-per-view, I mean, obviously you had good reason to, because it was during the last women's singles match that it kind of started to act a little crazy. Like there was a few blackouts or something like that, but that's to be expected. I'm sure they'll fix that on the replays eventually. Like not immediately, but after everything is said and done, they'll do it on the replays. Um, but yeah, I watched it, and even though they didn't sell out the stadium like they would want to, because WWE announced it as the attendance being over 77,000, when actually it was close to more like 60,000, if you will. And that's just WWE. They like to oversaturate certain numbers to make it look more impressive than what it really is. I'm sure they're going to try to oversaturate the fact that they broke another record with combined attendance for Saturday and then Sunday. They'll try to say combined together they shattered attendance, but we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. But yeah, it did look like the stadium was mostly full. It did definitely look like it was full. You can tell that there were some places they blacked out because they didn't do a complete sellout, but you could tell it was a decent crowd, decently well attended, if you will. Now, as far as WrestleMania goes itself, night one, the matches, I thought they were good. I thought the first couple of matches were good. Were okay. Were good, decent, if you will. The Usos and Nakamura and Rick Boogs match I thought was all right. Um, Unfortunately, it ended, I think, unschedule wise, if you know what I mean. Unschedule wise, basically being that it looked like, and a lot of people that have talked about WrestleMania Night 1 already have said that it seemed to be that Nakamura and Boogs were meant to win the titles. And what happened is Boogs went for what looked like probably would be some kind of finisher, or some kind of maneuver like a Samoan drop, or something, with one of the Usos on him and then the other Uso jumped on top, and he tried to carry both, and that's when his leg buckled, his knee gave out, and he tore his quadriceps, so quads. It's not his quads, but it's more like a quadripec kind of tear or something like that, to where he's gonna need surgery. And apparently, it's the kind of tear and surgery that after it's all taken care of, won't keep him out too long. Let's just hope Shinsuke doesn't get lost in the shuffle during that time, because they are gelling as a good tag team. But for right now, it looks like Shinsuke is going to have to be put into a singles situation until Boogs gets fully healed. Now, Boogs could still perform. He could go out, perform, and knock him over to the ring while he's healing. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, he basically tore what sounds like to be his quadricep tear, if you will. So he might still be able, like I said, to come out and perform, Nakamura's entrance, but that'll be, probably about it. But the opening match was decent. I'm not going to deny that. It was good. Usos, like I said, they went over, which I think was not the scheduled finish, but because of the injury, it ended up being the scheduled finish. I mean, basically, anytime something like this happens in a wrestling match, whether it's a championship match or not, that most of the time the person that's not meant to go over will end up going over to kind of save face for the other person involved, or the other team involved, and such. So yeah, the Usos ended up retaining, and now it looks like they're going to have to pretty much come up with another plan to get the belts off the Usos, if that was the original plan here at Mania. The second match was Drew McIntyre against Happy Corbin. It was okay. It was a decent match. A lot of people would say it was more, it would have been more suitable for let's say WrestleMania SmackDown, the SmackDown edition, the special SmackDown edition of WrestleMania, which was on Friday. A lot of people feel it would have suited better there or fit better there, but here's the thing: they still view Drew as a top guy, as someone that they could put the belt back on, unified or not. So you want to showcase him on the biggest platform that you got, and WrestleMania is the biggest platform. And again, it was a decent match. I mean, they did make note for the fact that Corbin is undefeated, not just since he's gone from Corbin, but, down and out Corbin to happy Corbin, from that standpoint, but also he's undefeated at WrestleMania. And they also made reference to to the fact that nobody's kicked out of the end of days finisher of Corbin's. And even Alex, formerly Deluxe Man, even brought that up. Like, yeah, I thought that move would be protected for a while, if not permanently, because of how devastating it's supposed to look. But that wasn't the case, because as soon as Drew hit it, not Drew, but as soon as Corbin hit it on Drew, Drew kicked out. At 2, he kicked out, which they did, like I said, they made a big deal about on commentary. And McIntyre did end up winning. He did end up winning with the Future Shock, and then with the Glasgow Kiss, or the Claymore Kick, if you will. And then Madcap Moss tried to get back in the ring, because Madcap tried to interfere a few times, or at least cause a distraction. One distraction almost cost Corbin the match. I don't know if that'll build into something down the line on Friday. But long story short, after the match, McIntyre just points his sword over at Madcap, goes and basically drives Madcap off the apron. Basically, Madcap, jumps off the apron just as Drew brings the sword down, and literally cuts the first 2 ropes, if you will, of the ring right in half. So I'm assuming they had to basically replace the ropes as best they could for the rest of the show to continue, which is why you saw some extended breaks and commercials and promo videos and stuff out there after McIntyre's victory over Corbin. Then we had the Logan Paul and Miz tag match against the Mysterios. I thought it was alright. I mean, a lot of people have come out, and I'll say it as well. Logan Paul looked good. He looked good in his first outing, but we also got to remember Logan Paul once boxed against, I think, Floyd Mayweather, so he does have some athletic background, some combat fighting background. So someone to have that kind of background already, they could easily adapt, if you will, to any other kind of combat sport around. So for him to adapt to the wrestling aspect, I thought was impressive. Depending on who his coach was. I mean, they built up with The Miz, but I don't think it was really The Miz. I mean, Miz might have been there for a show, to build up to it, but I think it was obviously somebody else that trained him. And he did good. He knew how to get heat and everything, or he would get cocky, taunt, and all that. He stole the Three Amigos suplex and then the frog splash as well. It's like, Logan Paul, give him credit. He's one of those rare instances where a celebrity, when they end up having a wrestling match at WrestleMania, gets it. He gets it. He knows how to get heat. He knows how to get the people to disdain him. He just gets it. It's like it just clicks. So yeah, him and Miz ended up winning, because what happened is it looked like the Mysterios were on the verge of beating, but Miz secretly tagged himself in and hit Ray with the Skull Christian finale to get the win. Now, what was interesting is as they have their hands raised, both him and Logan, Miz just looks at Logan, just like almost with a disdain, why? It's like basically he doesn't like the idea that he's stealing his spotlight. Like, hey, I brought you in here. Why are you stealing my spotlight? So he basically goes behind him and hits the Skull Crushing finale on him, and he actually gets cheered. So I don't know if they're gonna just do something between those two going forward to where Miz might be a default babyface and Paul will be the default heel. I don't know. Uh, but we'll see. I mean, the way they could play it up is Miz could say, hey, you did good, but you ended up showing me and even the Mysterios up, and you were just supposed to be there to, get a few shots in and, let me get the victory. Which he did, but they could play into the fact that Miz probably felt that Logan Paul was trying to show him up and everything as well as the rest of the WWE, and that could, by extent, make him the default babyface. The next match we had was the and let me make sure I don't miss anything here. The next match I think we had was Bianca Belaire and Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. And this was a good match. Yeah, that's what it was. That's what was next. Yeah. So yeah, this was a good match. Back and forth. Both had great entrances. Becky with the limo or the Hummer limo entrance. Bianca with the TSU, Tennessee State University band bringing her out. And what followed afterwards, after those impressive entrances, match-wise was great. Both ladies pulled out all the stops. Becky, the one emphasis, and I do agree with this, I do agree with everybody saying this, I should say, the one thing that was really emphasized in this match was the storytelling. Because, because when you look at the storytelling in this match, not just with the great maneuvers and, and stuff that they did in the ring, and outside the ring as well, but when you look, basically, at how the story was being told, from both ends of the spectrum, from Becky's standpoint, she was doing whatever it could to she was doing whatever she could, I should say, to squeak out a win, to walk away with her title. She didn't care if it was a DQ. She didn't care if she had to cheat to win by putting her feet on the ropes. She didn't care if she got a count out or whatever, or, or tried to get a quick submission. She was doing whatever it took to avoid the match, continuing against Bianca, because she knew that if it continued, there was a greater chance she would lose. And Bianca, her side of the storytelling was, no matter what Becky did to her, she just kept coming back for more. There was a move, there was a spot, everybody's talking about it, where it looks like Becky was trying to go for a Molly go round, the finisher off the top rope that Molly Holly used to do. And it was kind of miscommunicated. And instead, Bianca ended up getting like the heel of Becky's boot right here, almost getting her orbital socket. Could have blinded her, but basically caused her eye to swell up. Now, to me, if they play into that on Monday, with, maybe Becky coming out and everything, to congratulate Bianca, because Bianca did go on to win this match. What happened is that Becky tried to go for the manhandle slam again off the second rope, but Bianca was able to counter that, hit the KOD, and win. Like I said, like I said, during the match, she ended up getting hit in the eye with a shoe, swallowing it up, almost injuring her orbital socket. And what they could do is they could play into that on Monday, where Becky could come out, and if they feel like, we tried the heel turn, let's go and make her a face again, because that makes more logical sense. You could have her come out, congratulate Bianca, maybe point to the eye swelling or the swelling of the eye and say, that reminds me of what happened when I had my nose smashed. Because basically that right there signifies that you have arrived, that you are willing to do whatever it takes and go through whatever is in front of you, or whoever's in front of you, to remain on top. So they could play into that with Becky acknowledging it, kind of drawing similarities to her nose being broken and her doing this and all that. They could make similarities to it, and if they do, that'd be great. That would be absolutely great, because what it does is not only does it turn Becky Lynch face again, or at least begin the process of it, but just like Becky had that moment, where her nose was broken, and basically that, in that image of her like this, in the stands where it's broken, it's bleeding, she's like this, that signified her arrival as a mega star, like basically the Stone Cold, if you will, of the women's division at that time. This for Bianca if they work that into Monday's follow-up, could say that that's her signification of being a megastar herself, and maybe equivalently, I'm not saying this would be the case, but equivalently, perhaps be the next kind of like the John Cena or the Rock, if you will, of the current women's division. Just saying, because that would show, hey, you arrived if you're willing to sustain, work your way through that to get this championship. But yeah, the match was good. Again, the storytelling really helped emphasize it, along with some of the great moves. Again, like a lot of people have pointed out, there was a little miscommunication at times, but the storytelling and the rest of the match made up for it. And in the end, Becky ended up losing her belt. A lot of people have pointed out that this is the first loss Becky has taken in a long time since she's won the championship. You got to remember, she had to forfeit the championship over to the Money in the Bank winner during the pandemic because she was going to become a mom. And when she came back, she basically regained it from Bianca Belaire. And they've always and the storyline that they've always played up is she never truly lost the title. No one truly beat her for the championship ever, because what she did was she gave it up because she was going to become a mom. So basically, if you subtract her time away, to be a mom and everything, they do have a point that no one had ever really beaten her for the title until tonight. So Becky's reign, her undefeated reign as champion, has come to an end. And now the question is, what do they do going forward? Obviously, like I said, the next thing they need to do is play into what happened during the match, with the eye, as well as probably start building towards her being a babyface again. Now, as great as that match was, it was followed up by another great match as well, and that was, of course, Seth Rollins in his WrestleMania match against an opponent of Mr. McMahon's choosing. Now, nobody knew exactly who it was going to be, although I'm pretty sure a lot of people could put money on who it was going to be. But still, a lot of people were guessing because they knew WWE's reputation is, we're going to throw so many hints out there that it's going to be this person, and it turns out to be that, or not turns out to be, but basically what I'm trying to say is, okay, let me rewind. Okay. Basically, a lot of people were still speculating because they know WWE's reputation of, throwing out the hints of who it obviously is going to be, and then turning it around and making it somebody else, or making it turn out to be somebody else. So even though it was obvious it was going to be this person, people still speculated that, it could be Undertaker, it could be Shane, it could be Braun Breaker, and stuff like that. Nope. It turned out to be exactly who's been hinted at for a while, in and out of WWE, if you will, on and off WWE television and stuff, rumored and speculated. It turned out to be exactly who many of the hints dropped it to be. A lot of the news reports said it was going to be, and that, of course, was Cody Rhodes. And Cody, a lot of people say he set a precedent here for how you are treated when you come to WWE or return to WWE, because the moment, because here's what happens. Seth is waiting. He's telling them, "Come on, let's hurry it up. Time is money. Let's not waste anymore. Let's see who this is." And basically, the moment he said, "Okay, come on," and anything, but the moment he said, "Let's not waste any time. Time is money," kind of deal. All of a sudden, pyro goes off on the turnbuckles, and it ignites pyro going up the ramp. And honestly, a lot of people, including myself, knew the moment we saw the pyro go off on the turnbuckles, and then basically translate to the pyro going off on the ramp, we kind of knew it was going to be Cody. We knew that pretty much confirmed it was going to be Cody. And then, if that wasn't enough, the lights went out. near the stage, and then the rest of the arena, and they're still milking it for a little bit more. And then you hear Cody's iconic line, wrestling has more than one royal family. And then boom, you hear Kingdom, you hear, Down Straight, if you will. I think that's the name of the band that does Kingdom. You hear the Kingdom theme. You see the name American Nightmare plastered on the Tron. You see the 3D graphics showing you the iconic logo that Cody is known for the American Nightmare. And then you see the camera aimed right in the Pacific area, and then you see Cody rising up from the ground up. Basically, he's levitating up, if you will. Essentially, Cody, he ended up getting his entire AEW entrance, treatment, and everything that he got in AEW here in WWE at WrestleMania. That's what he ended up getting. Again, basically to a T. Again, the way the pyro went off in the ring to the ramp, and then the all over, and then the fact that the lights went out, and then you hear him say his line of wrestling has more than one royal family, and then Down Straight's Kingdom plays and all that. It was essentially, with a few added WWE aesthetics in there, like the 3D logos on the screen and all that, it was essentially the same entrance he had in AEW. Because he's rising up and everything, and then he's walking down the ramp. He stops in the middle. The pyro goes off. He's like this. He just puts his hand back, act like this, and it goes boom, after the pyro goes off. I mean, it's essentially, like I said, with a few added equivalents here and there, mostly the AEW entrance, just now on WWE television. And what followed was a great match. What followed was a terrific match between him and Seth. I mean, basically, if you want to get down to it, and a lot of people have pointed this out as well, it was essentially Cody Rhodes' AEW match setup brought to WWE. So, in turn, what you had at WrestleMania between him and Seth was an AEW-style match. That's what you had. You had an AEW-style match in a WWE ring. And it was great. It was tremendous. And in the end, Cody ended up winning. He had hit Crossroads once on Seth. He kicked out. Seth hit the pedigree on him. He kicked out. And then it just got to the end when Cody, I guess you could say Cody'd up, hit 2 Crossroads, then hit the flip-flop and fly, which his dad was known for utilizing in his matches. And then he hit a 3rd Crossroads to win the match. And honestly, it was the right move. It was the right decision, not only to choose and stick to the guns of, hey, it's going to be Cody that faces Seth and nobody else, if you will. But it was also the right decision to have Cody go over. Because we know that in the past, and a lot of people still bring this up, when you have somebody, competing, in a WWE ring for the first time that's been known for working elsewhere, and one of the first matches officially in the company is at WrestleMania, that usually the WWE guy is going to go over. And a lot of people bring up the Triple H Sting situation from WrestleMania 31. And I understand that. I truly understand that. But here's the thing. Cody Rhodes has been in WWE before. And they acknowledged that he was gone for 6 years. They acknowledged it. And they also, both him and Cody acknowledged basically, his disappearance for a while as well. During the match, where you have Seth yelling at him like, "Hey, welcome back to the big leagues." Da, 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 da. And then you see Cody doing the cartwheel and then doing the Stardust thing, like when he used to be Stardust, basically. And then you have the added addition of commentary, kind of emphasizing that Cody's wiping his past clean to start anew back in WWE. Basically saying he's wiping his past of AEW clean. They didn't say AEW directly, but basically the way they would mention it through the commentary and all that, and then the way things were, mentioned by Seth and all that towards Cody in the match, basically was their way of telling AEW, yeah, you might be good, but you're not the big leagues right now. You're not you're not as special as you think you are, because here's one of your top guys now back with us. You know, but yeah, the match was good. And hopefully this is the beginning of things for Cody in the long run. I know a lot of people are worried about him, that in a few months he's gonna probably be doing 24/7 title chasing, or he's gonna start jobbing and all that. Um, I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think honestly, Cody is going to he's going to do well, and I think honestly they're going to give him a run with the championship. I just, knowing WWE and how they are when they're able to take somebody away from the competition, who basically didn't give someone like Cody an opportunity to be on top, especially since he helped found the company, that being AEW, then to me, they'll do anything they can to stick it to that company and say, hey, you didn't want to make him champ, we'll do it instead. It's just like with any company. They'll take somebody that's notable from WWE who look like they should be champion, and then they'll basically say, you know what? You didn't want to make him champion WWE? We'll make him champion. And WWE's the same way, so I wouldn't be surprised if Cody does get that run this year. It may be brief and all that, but I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not. Okay, so to follow that up, you had Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. A lot of people felt that they were put into an awkward situation, and they were, because they had to follow up on two fantastic wrestling matches between Bianca and Becky and Seth and Cody. And they did decent. They did all right. Um, the ending, of the match was not what a lot of people expected, because they figured, okay, Charlotte's going to lose to Ronda. They're going to have a good match, but Ronda's going to win, right? Nope. Instead, Charlotte ended up winning, because what happens is Charlotte ends up being tossed into Charles Robinson. He gets speared by her, and then after she spears him, she falls back into an armbar by Ronda, and she's tapping, but Charles is down. So Ronda goes to Robinson to get him back up, and that opens her up wide, I should say, for Charlotte to hit a big boot on her and get the pinfall 1, 2, 3. And you could just tell on Ronda's face that she wasn't happy about that. I mean, obviously it was the planned outcome, but the storyline reaction of her was she wasn't happy, because basically it took Charlotte having to cheat to win the match because she can't beat her. So it looks like we're going to get a rematch, and I'm not going to lie. I think the rematch this time around is going to be a submission match, to where basically a pinfall is not going to count. A pinfall is not going to count, and the only way you win is by submission. And maybe they add in the stipulation of it's a I quit submission match, to where once you're put in a submission, the only way you can lose the match, it just is to say I quit while you're in the submission hold. So I think that's what we're getting is in the rematch at WrestleMania Backlash, is Ronda and Charlotte in a submission match, maybe with the I quit stipulation thrown in there for fuller effect, if you will, and that will be when Ronda gets the belt. Now you might say, well, why didn't she get it here? Well, let me ask you this. Why didn't she get it against Nia Jax at Money in the Bank in her first attempt? Because they were saving it. They want to save it for the next pay-per-view, and they saved it for SummerSlam. And I'm not going to be surprised if they decide, you know what, we're not going to give it to her. Because here's the strategy I think they probably went with. They probably thought, well, we can't have two women's championships change hands, so we need one to be kept on somebody else. And they probably realized, well, people want Bianca to win, and, Becky can suffer the loss, so we'll give it to Bianca instead of Charlotte, because they could do Charlotte losing to Ronda later on. And that's what I think is going to happen at Backlash, is we're going to have a submission match between the two, like I said, probably with the I quit, stipulation added on for a fuller effect, to where the only way you will lose the match via submission is if you say I quit, which would pretty much, seal the deal that Ronda would get the belt. but we'll see. We will see. And at last, but not least, we had Stone Cold Steve Austin on the KO show. And basically, long story short, KO pretty much told Stone Cold, I didn't bring you here to talk. I lied. I brought you here to fight. And Stone Cold said, okay. He asked the universe, the WWE universe, or the fans in attendance, if they wanted to see it. They said, hell yeah, twice. And he said, get me a ref down here. And the next thing you know, we had no holds barred, because that's what Kevin proposed. Because when he said, I didn't bring you here to talk, I brought you here to fight, he proposed doing a no holds barred match. And that's what we got. And it was good. It was an actually good no holds barred match. And Austin looked great. A lot of people have complimented that he looked great. And he did. He definitely looked great. And, he took bumps. He took bumps on the concrete outside, on the stadium floor, which is the concrete, I should say. He took bumps on the stadium floor. He took a bump into the LED turnbuckle or LED pole, which connects the ring pole, if you will, that where the turnbuckles are or connected to. He took that. He took a lot more physicality than we thought. He did bring out some of the classics, except for the Thesz press. I don't think he could do that anymore. But he brought out all the other classics. He brought out the mud hole stomping and all that. He would occasionally go around and open up a Broken Skull IPA he had. A Broken Skull IPA he had. And he would drink it. He actually got stunned by Owens. Owens actually was able to get a stunner on him. But in the end, what happened is Owens went to get a chair. Austin, getting up from the stunner, is holding on to the ropes. Owens is going to go and hit him with the chair. Austin gets out of the way, and the chair, boom, ricochets off the ropes and right into KO, allowing Austin to hit him with a stunner to get the win. And then he hit him with another stunner afterwards, and then pretty much pushed him out of the ring, where Kevin Owens gets escorted out of the building by two police officers or sheriffs. So yeah, Austin wins potentially, basically his last, I wouldn't say potentially, but for right now, his last match in any capacity, at WrestleMania, which, from a career storytelling standpoint, comes full circle for him, because he started his career in Dallas, with WCCW and the Sportatorium and all that. And now he's able to close it out in Dallas at AT&T Stadium at WrestleMania. So yeah, No Holds Barred was pretty good. Austin surprised a lot of us with the bumps he took, and in the end, the right decision was made. I mean, I'll put it this way. Had Austin not agreed to get physical with KO for this segment, for this match, and Ronda and Charlotte were going to be main eventing as originally planned, then yeah, Ronda probably would have walked out with the title. But she didn't. Because instead, Austin being, on the KO show, and this being basically what a lot of people thought it was going to turn into, which was a no-holds-barred kind of fight or match, basically she was placed second to last, and that basically caused her to not walk out with the title. But I think, like I said, they are saving that for WrestleMania Backlash for what would be a submission match, maybe with the I Quit stipulation. But yeah, Austin wins, celebrates. Byron Saxton gets in, thinking, Austin's gonna thinking Austin's inviting him in just to have a beer. And in traditional Stone Cold fashion, Byron drinks a little bit with him, and then he gets stunned. And then Austin brings in his brother, looks exactly like him almost, except he's a little bigger, chubbier, if you will, no offense. And they pretty much end the show like that. Austin does give a shout out to Dallas, Texas, say it's great to be back. And then, like I said, that's how they end the show. They did have the Hall of Fame inductees on stage. They did have the Steiners. They did have Sharmell. They did have Shad Gaspar's family. Who else did they have? Yeah, I think they had Vader's family. And then, of course, The Undertaker got an entrance. He got an entrance all to himself. Because usually when they bring out the highlighted Hall of Fame inductees to stand alongside the other inductees, yeah, they get their own entrance, but then the announcer says, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Hall of Fame class of 2020 whatever." You know, they usually do that. They usually do that, but they didn't this time. Instead, Undertaker's music hit. He came out. He got a standing ovation for several minutes. Then he walked out, walked to the back, and that was it. They didn't even, they didn't even announce that it was him by name. They just let his music play, let him come out. That's it. He waved to the crowd, acknowledged them as they acknowledged him, and then he walked to the back, and that was it. But like I said, usually they have the highlighted inductee or inductees come out last with the music and all that, and then stand alongside the other inductees, and you have the announcer announce that this is the Hall of Fame class. Didn't happen this time because this is the Undertaker. If you're gonna make him your highlighted inductee to any Hall of Fame, he's got to have not only his own entrance, but he's got to have it all to himself because he's deserved it. And yeah, that's what they did. That's what they did for him. So overall, I thought, the first night of WrestleMania was good. I'll give it about a B plus to A minus to B plus. The one pattern I did notice, and I can't for the life of me understand why nobody brings this up in the reviews. I don't know why nobody brings this up in the reviews, but I always notice this at any wrestling event, whether it's a pay-per-view or even a regular weekly show. But when it comes to WWE and AEW to an extent, and even Impact, because a lot of wrestling promotions, big or small, are guilty of this, I noticed that the person that is going to job in the match or lose the match comes out first. And when they come out first, that's usually a typical sign, unless the wrestling promotion wants to surprise you. It's usually a typical sign that person's going to be looking up at the lights or tapping out. And I noticed that throughout all of the show tonight, every single match ended up that way. Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura, even though looks like, according to numerous reports, they were scheduled to win the titles, they came out first. What happened? Usos, who came out last, Usos ended up winning. The Happy Corbin McIntyre match, Corbin came out second, McIntyre came out first, McIntyre ended up winning. Miz and Logan Paul came out last, Mysterio's came out first, Miz and Logan Paul ended up winning. Becky came out first, Bianca came out second, Bianca won. Seth came out first, Cody came out second, Cody ended up winning. Ronda came out second, Charlotte came out second, but Ronda came out first, Charlotte came out second, Charlotte won. And then, of course, Owens came out first, Austin came out second, Austin won. You see what I'm saying? Everybody that came out second, with their entrance, ended up winning their matches. They ended up winning them. The people that came out first, those are the ones that lost their matches. Because the ones that came out second ended up winning. And if that happens tomorrow night or tonight at WrestleMania Sunday, then you'll know who's going to win. You will know. So, yeah. For example, if the New Day comes out first, and then Ridge Holliday and Sheamus come out second, then you know who's going to win there. I'm just saying, unless they switch things up, unless they switch it up, you're going to know who wins just by who enters first and who enters last. That's about it. And that's the pattern I noticed here. Again, like I said, that's the one thing I noticed here, because the moment I saw Ronda come out, I was like, oh, I was thinking, okay, this might be where they, change things up and they have Ronda go over. But I also knew that, wait a minute, she's coming out first, then that means, just based on what I've been watching, she's going to end up losing the match. And she did. So, yeah, that's the one thing I've noticed that not a lot of people reviewing WrestleMania Night 1 have pointed out. That everybody that came out first ended up losing the match. Even if it wasn't scheduled to be that way. But but overall though, guys, that's my review for WrestleMania Night 1. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment if you like. Live chat during the premiere. Super chats and super stickers are open and would be appreciated. Check me out at my podcast, the BW Roses Discussions, except on all your favorite platforms except for Pandora. Also check me out at VENMO at BW Roses. Check me out at VENMO at Brian-Warmer-2 to help support me there. And at Cash App at BW Roses98. At DeviantArt.com/BVW1979. And at Patreon.com at BW Roses to support me with the $1, $3 tier. I have a new video up on the $3 tier that you can watch exclusively on Patreon right now, as well as at places like Viniant and DeviantArt, and it will go public real soon on YouTube down the line. But anyway, though, guys, that's my review.
Sorry, I don't understand.
And that was my Alexa going off. I don't understand. But like I said, that's about it for my review, guys, on WrestleMania Night 1. Let me know what your thoughts are again overall, and I will see you tomorrow for WrestleMania Night 2 and my review of that. And until then, peace.